Pioneer brand canola with Optimum Gly, the highest yielding glyphosate-tolerant trait on the market. What's next in canola happens here.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com, and it's great to have you with us here today. Looking forward to today's show. A lot happened in the world of agriculture this week. Wet weather, not like terrible timing, Mother Nature. Timing is everything in the world of moisture, and I am sure there are so many people that said this week, where was this moisture in July, right? Yeah, all of us are saying that. Good for the ranchers. There's no doubt about that. Absolutely. We'll get to that in a second. But for people who are trying to complete some grain and canola harvest, not so timely whatsoever. Today on the program, we're going to hear from Matt Makens of Makens Weather, get a bit of a weather forecast for the Western Canadian prairies. We got Rob Stone, farmer from Davidson, Saskatchewan, also on the board of Sask Wheat. He's going to talk about the funding this week announced by Sask Wheat of the GATE project. That's an initiative by Cereals Canada to essentially have a new building and an operating center for some of the activities of Cereals Canada. And a number of different farming organizations stepped up this week, and Sask Wheat being one of them. We're also going to talk about pulse tariffs. Greg Cherewky with Pulse Canada talked to Lindsay Smith of RealAgriculture this week about India. Some good news when it came to tariff exemptions, at least till the end of the year. And then we're going to hear a portion of an interview that I did with James Moore of Dentons talking about the return of Parliament. So lots to discuss today on the program. Now, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line. We'd love to hear from you. 855-776-6147. Let's get a weather forecast from Matt Makens of Makens Weather. He chatted with RealAg's Lindsay Smith earlier this week on the RealAg Radio podcast. Here's that conversation.
Last 30 days, we've seen the drought numbers really skyrocket throughout the prairies, mostly the western, over the next few days. So starting now through about Thursday or Friday or so, a lot of the central to western prairies will pick up 40, 50, 60 centimeters, or millimeters, excuse me. So a good amount of rainfall. So for the next 2 weeks, wetter than average for that region. And then it will dry off beyond this weekend. But it's looking at a favorable pattern between now and, say, the weekend. And there's not necessarily a lot of cold in that area. So if folks are worried about frost there's going to be snow in the mountains. Great. Send it up there.
We like
but
it.
Down below, we're not necessarily looking at much of a cold impact, just cooler, if you will. But yeah, a good amount of water there for the next 3-4 days or so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that, of course, is all well and good for what we do here in Canada. But ultimately, when it comes to the type of weather that's going to move the markets, that really all comes down to the U.S. corn crop, the U.S. soybean crop. We saw from the tour the incredible yield potential that's potentially out there. What are we seeing for the trend for the weather in those critical areas that are really going to make or break this crop?
Sure. Over the next several weeks, there's going to be water that hits mostly our central and northern corn areas. That can be a potential impact on harvest as we approach that point, obviously. The longer range outlook, though, closer to our harvest times, prime times there, it looks like we'll have favorable windows for field work, some drier periods. So the frequency of storms here has decreased coming out of the summer, which can be more favorable, obviously, for us to bring in the grain, obviously, there. But over the next, say, week or so, there's still going to be some wet pockets in there. So field work issues for, say, 10 days, hit a drier pocket. Go forward, it looks like next month, October, will be drier than how September has panned out to be. Temperature-wise, we've had some cooler areas, a little bit of frost on the far northern fringes of our grain areas, but we're not necessarily worried about frost down here like you have been up there, and that's a good thing. So now we're just going to time out the precipitation and those favorable chunks of time.
All right. Now, I don't want to talk about winter, but we have to talk about winter. And that is a ways out. However, it feels like if we're going to even consider what comes after harvest and the dreaded W, the discussions turn to La Nina and El Nino and those phenomena. What, at least initially, does it look like as we look forward into the later months? What might we see with those trends coming into winter?
Okay, for the remainder of this year, for the remainder of 2024, La Nina is very likely to move in. It's already developing. In the ocean conditions, that's where it's technically defined, but it's already in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is behaving very La Nina-like. And classically in the fall, that can deliver moisture to the central and western prairies. It kind of cuts, Ontario and Quebec in half. Some get water, some are really dry in that pattern because it's kind of like what's left from the prairies to reach us at that point. And temperature-wise during falls with La Nina, we can be quite mild, especially central and eastern areas. But once we hit winter, so December, January into February, you'll notice, wow, the cold is getting a lot colder and it's staying longer. Not necessarily a wetter period for winter, but it's certainly going to be colder. So in quick summation, compare this incoming winter to last. It will be colder. Mm-hmm. We will likely have more frequent snow, but that doesn't mean, I don't want it to sound like it's going to be snowier, just more frequent systems. But yeah, plan on it being a colder winter.
I don't know, Matt. I asked you on the show, and this is what you give. Although this is, what is it? I mean, we're forewarned, right? So for those of us who have livestock, make sure you've got your hay secured and make sure that you're ready for those colder biases, those colder systems that work through. So that's okay. Also, book your vacations. That's what you're telling me.
Book your vacation south. Buy your hay now. It's favorable price compared to where it will be in a few months. And then we'll sit out the cold together down south somewhere where we're all warm.
I like it. Okay. All right. So now what does a La Nina, though, mean for the West? What does that mean for the prairies?
Fall can be favorable for water. But once we start to get to winter, especially the early winter, say through Christmas and New Year's, you can get a lot of those Chinook winds coming through. So the east side of the Rockies there toward the western prairies, they can have really dramatic temperature swings. Very warm with a Chinook, and then you're cold all of a sudden. You can get these winters where, hey, we're brown Christmas. Where's the water, and that's kind of a setup. So for early to mid-fall, favorable with La Nina to get water on the prairies, and then we dry out pretty progressively through winter and start off spring on a dry note. And this is where we can run into some soil moisture issues that hit the prairies.
Okay, so conserve that soil moisture that should be falling, we hope, this fall.
Should be falling, yes.
All right.
With a warmer outlook, it's favorable because this fall moisture, it's falling on thawed ground, soak it in, and then freeze it.
All right.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. Okay. Matt Makens, where can people go to find more on Makens Weather?
Go to makensweather.com. Lots of stuff there for Canada, the States. Also CanFax, a product from you guys out of Calgary. There's monthly updates quarterly updates with outlooks, long range stuff, discussions on their website. So canfax.ca.
That was Matt Makens of Makens Weather. He does great work. Great guy out of Denver, Colorado. Encourage you to check out his weather service. So, potentially kind of an up and down fall here when it comes to the Western Canadian prairies. Ooh, I don't like the idea of cold in the wintertime. I hate cold. I'm not a winter person whatsoever. And those of you that say you are, you're lying. You're lying. You're just lying to all of us. Okay, we're going to take a break here on RealAg on the Weekend. When we come back, we're going to hear from Davidson farmer Rob Stone. We're going to dig into what was behind the decision of Sask Wheat to fund the GATE project. We'll hear about that when we come back. You're listening to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJME.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School Brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Nitrogen fertilizer is your farm's #1 expense. Farmers are working together through Genesis Fertilizers to solve the problem of high prices and security of supply by planning a state-of-the-art nitrogen plant. Security and earnings through ownership is the solution. Visit Genesis today at genesisfertilizers.com to learn more.
One of the big announcements out of Saskatchewan this week came out of Sask Wheat, where they announced that they're going to be participating in the capital raise for the GATE project. That has to do with Cereals Canada. I chatted with Rob Stone, farmer out of Davidson, Saskatchewan, and also board member with Sask Wheat and a representative on the Capital Raise Committee with the GATE project. I asked Rob, what exactly is the GATE?
So the GATE project is an overall campaign to build a new technology exchange area for Cereals Canada to do their work, to have all of the milling and technical expertise all in one upgraded building where we can showcase to the customers and people around the world all the good things that Canadian wheat and cereals can do. So Sask Wheat, of course, is a large portion of the wheat acres, and so we're very interested to be a part of all of these things, because our mandate, of course, is the market development that comes with this. So it's a large campaign that is starting to roll out now.
Why building? Like there's the operational side and what you're trying to accomplish, but why a building?
Well, I think that the building is the critical piece of this, is that you need to have somewhere to operate. You need to have somewhere for your technical equipment. You need a place to operate out of. The current facility that it was CIGI, is Cereals Canada, is and hasn't been for a very long time, has not been a suitable space for the more modern equipment, hasn't been a suitable space as far as just space itself, and the lease is running out. So the time is upon us that there has to be something happen. Otherwise, Cereals as we know it will not be able to do all the technical work and host all of the delegations that do the training and all of that sort of those functions there.
Sask Wheat, one of the farm orgs this week, along with Alberta Grains, Manitoba Crop Alliance, I believe the Grain Farmers of Ontario as well, stepping up with pretty considerable dollars. I can't ask you to speak for the other provinces, but from Sask Wheat's perspective, talk about the amount and the justification. Yeah.
So the amount that has been committed is $6,243,000 in foundational funding to the GATE project. It's a formula within the fundraising constructs, and that was the request and the split between the groups. So, the board has decided to commit that foundational support to the project, with the expectation that, and several conditions, of course, to it, that all of the other fundraising and other groups and things that will be approached and work into the plan over time will fulfill the fundraising goal. So that was the request of our group, and of course it's the market development, market access, and all of the things that happen is foundational to the things that are part of our mandate as well. So this is critical. We can't do it as a provincial organization, so we need to be invested in the national organization to accomplish this work.
So farm groups have put up a total of $13.4 million. Our understanding is that we're still considerably short of the total fundraise or basically capital acquisition target that's out there. How much more needs to be raised in the marketplace?
So the the overall goal is just over $100 million for this project. The business plan has all of those things spelled out, and I guess that's to come. As far as from Sask Wheat perspective, we've seen all of these things and are confident that everything will put into place and it will come out as time happens for these things. I'm not an experienced fundraiser, but do know that this is where we sit right now, is that we're the kind of the foundational people. The farmers need to show the support for this. This benefits the farmers the most, and this is important to us. So we need to be the ones that are on board and show our support first. And we have done that this week.
There are some farmers in Saskatchewan that are saying this isn't the role of, or this is outside the mandate of commodity groups like Sask Wheat. What do you say to that? Why do you feel it is in the mandate?
It's clear to me that it's within the mandate. Market development, market access, all of the activities that Cereals Canada undertakes is within this project. How we get there, we need the facility, we need the equipment, and that's fulfilling the roles of taking the research and everything that we do in our variety development and marketing it to our international customers. So it's connecting everything together. So I believe quite confidently that it's well within our mandate that this is something that needs to happen.
Is some of the money when at the table here? It will some of the farmers are one component of Cereals Canada. There also is grain companies, for example. Will they be stepping up from a capital requirement standpoint? Do you know? Or are they being asked to? Or where's the rest of the money going to come from? The AFC or? Yeah,
13 doesn't equal 100. So there's certainly
right.
And there's a plan in place that's going to come. And I don't feel at liberty to discuss that. It's good questions to ask Cereals themselves, Cereals, to disclose that. But from what I've seen from what our board has seen as well, is that this is where our place is, and there certainly is a plan in place for the rest of it.
Yeah. What are you hearing from members? People that are writing, obviously checkoffs. They're participating in the checkoff. What are you hearing from this week? Has it been a mixed set of reaction? Has it been all positive? Have you got concerns? What's been? Your name is in the press release, right? So if they're calling somebody, they're calling Rob. So what are you hearing?
It's been interesting, really, because I don't want to say that it's been crickets of people. You certainly see some stuff on social media and people talking about it back and forth. But personally, incoming calls with concerns about this project have been quite limited. I've made quite a few outbound calls to people that I know, trying to help understand where things are at and trying to get a good gauge on if. I guess just messaging what people need to hear and those sorts of things. But overall, I feel pretty comfortable with the level of dialogue that I've had with people. And I guess maybe I admittedly, this is the announcement came during harvest. It had kind of this timelines and all of those sorts of things. So people are busy, and do encourage them to ask questions. But I think it hasn't been a flurry anyways.
Hey, Rob, thanks a lot. I know you're in the rain out. Hopefully we get some sunny weather here, maybe a little wind to dry things out, and you can get harvest done. So thanks a lot for taking some time for us today.
Thanks for the time, Shaun.
Love your feedback on what you heard there from Rob Stone regarding the funding of the Gate project coming out of Sask Wheat. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Or when we come back, we're going to talk about India giving Canada an exemption when it comes to tariff on pulses. You're listening to RealAg on the Weekend here on 980 CGME and 650 CKOM. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Join the Prairie Oat Growers Association for their annual general meeting on December 4th at the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel. Visit poga.ca for more information and to register.
This week in Winnipeg was the Pulse and Special Crop Convention that is a big deal. When it comes to global pulse industry meetings, this one that is held annually in Canada, it's a big deal, and it gets a good turnout from around the world. Lindsay Smith of Real Agriculture had a chance to catch up with Greg Cherewky just before the convention started this week to chat about the convention, but also really get a bit of a handle on how big of a presence of discussion would it be about India extending the exemption on tariffs when it comes to Canadian pulse exports. Here's that conversation.
The talk this year definitely will be around the decision that we heard on Friday, which is that India will be lifting the restrictions and extending, actually, the lifting of restrictions on pea imports from the previous deadline of October 31st through to December 31st. So I'm personally really looking forward to hearing some of the discussion around that. We haven't had a chance yet to talk to too many people involved directly in the trade. We have some officials coming from India later this morning. I'll actually be heading to the airport shortly to be picking them up. So looking forward to having some conversations with those folks to get the real detail behind the decision. But I'm happy to talk a little bit about it with you today too.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is one of those, the big question really is, I guess we'll start with, did you have an inkling this may be coming? Was this a surprise? Or was this expected, or is this very, very unexpected?
I'm not sure too many people really expected this news. I mean, perhaps maybe they didn't expect to hear about it on September 13th. It's quite difficult to get a good read on what's influencing policy change and the timing of announcements in India, as you can imagine. But, there are a few things that we do watch for. And if you look at that information and think about it, it may not be unreasonable to understand what's driving some of these things. So, for example, what stands out to us right now is how food price inflation might be impacting these policy decisions. So overall, food price inflation in India has remained quite high, in and around the 6% mark and even higher in rural areas. But the key is pulse price inflation is stubbornly high. It was 13.6% in August, and that's the 15th straight month of double-digit price increases on pulses. So, to think that the lifting of restrictions first occurred back in December of 2023, and now it's going to be extended all the way through to the end of December 2024, and understanding that pulse price inflation has remained in that double-digit range throughout that time frame. Again, it's not unreasonable to think that the extension of that policy is linked to the government of India's mandate to keep these staple sources of protein available and affordable, 365 days a year. But, one of the other things that we think about is, of course, the politics, because there's always an element of political context that needs to be factored into this. And right now there's 6 state assembly elections between June and November. And, governments around the world are seized with affordability, cost of living challenges. And obviously we know that food is a big contributor to rising costs to consumers. So, controlling food prices as people head to the polls, that's likely a factor as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of volume might we see as far as crop movement with this tariff exemption being extended, are we anticipating a lot more pea crop moving to India because of this?
I knew you were going to ask me this, Lindsay. I don't want to make a projection for you because, like I said, over the course of the next 2 days, we're going to have the experts weigh in on that. In fact, on Wednesday afternoon, we have the pea market outlook session, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. So I'm really interested to hear what the people who actually do the deals think is going to move this year. I mean, what I can tell you is that India imported over 800,000 tons of yellow peas from Canada in 2023-24 as that restriction was lifted. So, in roughly, I would say 6 months, we know we were able to move 800,000 tons of product into India. So the question will be, what is India in the market for in terms of overall volumes over the course of this next 4 months? And how much of that is going to be, subject to intense competition with Russia? How much will the Kharif or summer season crop, which will be harvested in October, influence the overall volumes they're interested in importing? So I don't know, is my short answer to this. And I'd be happy to talk with you after we've gone through, the next couple of days of market outlooks with the experts to share some of what I've learned with you for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, it does. And I appreciate that. But realistically, just looking at, that 23 to 24 number of over 800,000 tons, this is a significant demand from this country when these tariffs are not in place. So I'm sure we can anticipate some big numbers as well. I guess the question being, though, obviously it takes time to make these deals, to move this product, to get this tonnage into India. So, opening up this window means that we've got that shipping season to get it there. Politically, though, and as you've alluded to, India can be a very complicated market for Canada. What is the general sense as far as the relationship right now with trade with India, at least from the Pulse perspective?
From the Pulse perspective, and I could take you back, I think we probably chatted last year at this time about India and about the state of the relationship between Canada and India, and it was perhaps at an extremely low point at that point because we had just heard about the announcement in the House of Commons about the alleged assassination of a Canadian citizen by the Indian government, and so India-Canada free trade talks were shelved at that time. So when I think back to then and fast forward to today and consider everything that's happened in between, I can honestly say that the relationship at a B2B level and at an industry-to-industry level has remained incredibly strong. I mean, we've remained, the lines of communication between our industries have remained open. Of course, the business has continued to flow, so we had a good movement of lentils throughout some of the most difficult times from a diplomatic tension perspective. We had good movement of lentils throughout the course of the fall of last year. And then, in December, as we've been talking about it, we've had the first lifting of restrictions on pea imports in 6 years. So I think, when you consider what impact, when you try to answer the question, what kind of impact has there been on the pulse industry from the tension that we've seen between governments, I would say, the proof is in what's actually happened, the business that's actually been done. We have remained in close contact. The relationships at a business-to-business level are strong. And at an industry-to-industry level, we remain in close contact with our partners. And in fact, are hosting a delegation from India, from NAFED of India this week. And we'll be touring them around Canadian farms and taking them to visit some processing facilities, et cetera. So I think, it's safe to say that the things are in a relatively good place between our two industries.
Mm-hmm.
As Greg said, so much of this industry is relationship-based. It's true in Canada, and it's really true around the world. Sales is about, I phrase it this way. Sales is, there's a lot of digital opportunities, Zoom meetings and phone calls and, of course, texting. But nothing replaces that belly-to-belly situation and the opportunity to get to know somebody and have that relationship that establishes the trust to do some business. And so that's what conventions like this are all about. Great insight there from Greg Cherewky. Glad India made that decision this week, and hopefully we can get another extension going past the end of this year. Okay, we've got more coming up here on RealAg on the weekend. We're going to hear from James Moore of Dentons about the return of Parliament, what to expect going forward. You're listening to RealAg on the weekend, 650 CKOM and 980 CJME.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by BASF and Syngenta Canada.
MNP reminds you that the initial deadline to submit your 2023 Agri-Stability Form without penalty is September 30th. Visit MNP today to connect with an agriculture risk management advisor.
Parliament returned this week, and it brought some interesting behaviors and shenanigans, and maybe some heated arguments. Temperature was up a little bit. To discuss what we can expect out of this sitting of Parliament, I caught up with James Moore, former Ministry of Industry under the Harper government. He now works for Dentons as a business advisor in Vancouver. So what can we expect as Parliament returns this week?
I think it'll be seen as shaky by the public, right? Because the NDP and the Liberals have officially, parted ways, but they're still dating, right? They're still friends with benefits, but they're not officially married in their contractual agreement. So I think actually we will have stability because, in the Canadian system, in order for there to be an election in a minority parliament, the 3 out of the 4 parties have to want an election, and the Liberals definitely don't want an election, right? They're deep in the woods in the low 20s. Justin Trudeau is deeply unpopular. The NDP have had bad numbers as well. They don't want an election as well. So 2 out of the 3 needed parties of the 4 don't want a campaign. The Bloc Québécois can have an election anytime. They're doing well in the province of Quebec right now. They can go. The Conservatives really want an election. So when the spread is so wide, it's in everybody's self-interest on the bottom end of the polling dynamic to want to sort of hold it together. So I think they'll hold it together. The big element that's it is rocking things is the poor performance of the Liberals in the by-elections in Toronto. There are 2 by-elections that are happening this week that are really going to be problematic, I think, for the government in terms of Justin Trudeau's ability to hold things together. So as Parliament comes back, I think Conservatives are in wind full in their sails, pretty cocky, pretty on top of their game and ready to go into a campaign. And I think the Liberals are in a turtle. They had their national caucus retreat in Nanaimo last week, and a third of the MPs didn't show up. That's staggering. Like, that doesn't happen. You're the governing party of a G7 country, and a third of your MPs don't show up to meet with the Prime Minister to talk about the fall strategy of Parliament. So this is a government that's not just deep in the back nine; they're really on their last legs.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been talking about to the audience here is whatever happens, whether Prime Minister Trudeau goes down in defeat in the next election, or he decides to take the option prior to the next election, do you really want to be the next person? Like, that's a tough position. It's sort of like you want to be the 4th owner of the golf course. And if you look at the situation on the conservative side of the aisle, you don't want to be like Andrew Scheer. Then they went through Aaron O'Toole. It took to Pierre Poilievre to find the leader that changed the poll numbers. It's a tough act to follow.
If you look through the sweep of Canadian history, it's almost never the case that the successor to an existing government does really well thereafter. It almost never happens. For example, Jean Chrétien wins 3 majorities in a row. Paul Martin comes in. He wins the next election, underperforms, wins a minority. He's gone in 2 years. Brian Mulroney is there for 8 years. He leaves. Kim Campbell comes on. She's out of office in 6 months, and she's gone. The party's down to 2 seats. Even the Conservative Party, Stephen Harper loses in 2015. We go to Rona Ambrose, Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, Pierre Poilievre, and now we're up. Took 4 leaders. Yeah. The Liberals went from Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin, Stéphane Dion, Michael Ignatieff, Bill Graham, and then they arrived at Justin Trudeau. And then, and the reason for that is in our culture is that we have a parliamentary system, but we have presidential style politics. It's very leader focused. And so the habits, especially after 8 or 9 years, 10 years Justin Trudeau's been leader of the Liberals now for 10 years, the habits, the values, the mores, disposition, the identity, all of it, the vocabulary becomes one and the same with the person. That person goes and the party doesn't know what it thinks or believes or how it should present itself anymore. And there's a bit of a scramble and a shakeup. And so after Trudeau, it's going to be a wild scramble. And that'll provide Pierre Poilievre with the opportunity, should he win, to have maybe some clear sort of horizon in front of him to set some goals, move an agenda, and go in a certain direction. But it also means that the official opposition is probably not the Liberals. The official opposition becomes the provinces. It becomes the cities. It becomes the media. It becomes expectations. It becomes the growing dynamic in Quebec right now, which we can talk about the rise of Quebec separatism that's happening quietly in Quebec.
Yeah, I heard that today in Question Period. That was actually really clear today, is talking the rise of Quebec and some of the attitude coming from the bloc. But I want to talk about the 17 to 20 point lead that the Conservatives have right now, depending on which poll you look at. Is that insurmountable? Is this a foregone conclusion that Pierre Poilievre is the next prime minister, or is there something the Liberals can do to at least close that gap between now and whenever the next election is?
Well, Donald Trump will never become president. Hillary Clinton can't lose. She's so far ahead in the polls. So I mean,
good point. Okay.
Yeah. So you never say never. However, with this, I think we're pretty close to saying never. In part because I use the example of Trump and Hillary Clinton. That people knew Hillary Clinton, they didn't know Donald Trump. In this circumstance, Pierre Poilievre, what's most interesting about the Conservative numbers now is that there's a consensus between 10 and 20 points. He's been up now. Let's say 15 for a year. Historically, when the Liberals have gotten in trouble and the Conservatives pop up in the polls, the public go, I can't believe this. I don't like this. We got to get rid of the Liberals. Give us the other guys. And they look at the other guys and they go, yeah, I don't know if I want the other guys. I'm still mad at the Liberals, but I don't know about the other guys. And so that's happened. I mean, Conservatives under both Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole won the popular vote, but lost the seat count. What's interesting now about the poll numbers is that the public says they want change, but in order to win government, the public has to want the other people to win. They have to want the other guy. And that has been lacking. So now the Liberals, the public doesn't want them. They think that the Conservatives are ready, and they expect the Conservatives to win, right? So I think the 1-2-3 combo of we want the current guys out, we want the other guys in, and we think the other guys are going to win, and we're okay with that. For a year now, more than a year, Pierre has been 10 to 20 points up in the polls, and it hasn't spooked the voters into thinking, well, I don't know if we have sort of early buyer's remorse about what we're signaling here. They're actually quite comfortable. They're ready for change. And what's most interesting, if you go the next layer down in the numbers, is that the cohort of voters that are leading the change are young Canadians. It's not gray hair, senior citizens, sort of people who are culturally more, prepared for center-right governments because of the, historical alignment. No, it's young people. The biggest cohort, the biggest voting bloc, and Conservatives would win a supermajority if only people who are 18 to 35 voted. Then Conservatives lead that cohort of voters more than any other group of voters, which has never happened before in my lifetime.
That was James Moore of Dentons. That was just a sliver. Okay, this is like a sneak peek, a bit of a trailer, so to speak. You can hear the entire conversation I had with James Moore. I think it's excellent. I'm a little bit biased. He was fantastic. Okay, you can find all of it by going to RealAgriculture.com, or the video is also posted on the Real Agriculture YouTube channel. Highly encourage you to check that out. I think this is going to be a very, very interesting sitting of Parliament. You got a situation now where the Bloc is in control. We've switched the NDP in the Bloc, and the Bloc, one of their asks has to do with old age pension, and the other has to do with Bill C-282, which is protecting supply management. Ooh, the drama. It's all going to unfold. If you have any questions or comments, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in here today to Real Ag on the Weekend. Please check out realagriculture.com, and we'll chat with you again next week. Cheers, everybody.